Hi, and welcome to this week's Astro Talk, where we will be discussing the transits taking place from April the 6th through to the 12th. I'm Audi Solares, and I think this week is beautiful, especially coming out of these eclipse windows that we've been in. These retrograde stories are finally coming to a close. Not entirely, but we have a few direct stations, so we're just going to see what the week has to offer. On Sunday the 6th, we have the Sun in Aries making a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini, and this feels like a eureka moment. It feels like a moment in time where our ideas are just sort of clicking into place. Maybe we're getting a lot of rapid fire, brand new concepts in the Aries Gemini sector of our charts, and we feel really confident about our thought process within this, the stream of consciousness that's entering into our realm, if you will. It feels super inspiring. You might feel extremely confident. So if there's a new idea coming your way at this time, a new project or venture that's being introduced to your aura, to your psyche, maybe it's your angels, guides, higher self, a mentor, whatever it might be, it feels like something that you can see yourself really leaning into, something that is really like putting the keys into the ignition, and you're like, all right, actually, let's fucking go. So I really like this energy, and because it is a sextile, there is a lot of room here for us to step up to work with it. It might be one of those things where like you get the idea or thought in passing, and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool, I'm gonna write it down later. But then later comes and you totally forgot about it. I would use this transit as an exercise in taking immediate action. Sun in Aries, right? Very quick to jump on the momentum, because sometimes we get those ideas like in the shower or when we're driving and we're like, okay, like how long can I hold on to this? It's great, but it might come and go really quickly. Those are those mercurial, Aries, Martian kind of energies at play. So don't take those ideas for granted. Really, if you have the chance, write them down, explore them, sit with them, see what else you can kind of soak up from them in that moment and dive a little bit deeper. And so starting off with this energy for the week feels super inspiring and really exciting. And later in the day, we're actually going to have Mars in Cancer making a trine to Venus in Pisces. And so Venus is still retrograde. She is at this moment where she's about to tie up some loose ends. She is actually going to have a couple of divine appointments set up. Mars is one of them, Saturn is one of them, and Uranus as well, actually. And so throughout this Venus retrograde story, what is it that you have pinpointed in your relationship to finances and love and beauty and values and self-worth? What is it that has been shown and revealed to you that you're ready to not only integrate all of the wisdom from, but to take healing action on? That is this Mars in Cancer trine Venus in Pisces. It's asking us, okay, you know what? We've gone through the ocean. We've dived into those etheric waters of like pleasure and beauty and, spotted the distortions. Now, how do we move forward from a place where we can say, I'm aware of these things, and here is how I want to shift the way that I move in the world, in my relationships, shift my relationship to money and how I do these things. It's going to land a bit differently depending on your chart, as always. But underlying this is this very healing, supportive, and sweet energy that's asking us to lean into this sort of soft seduction that we have with life, this sort of dance that we have with the universe, and how we co-create our reality, and how we, in a way, co-create the relationships that show up for us to mirror what it is that we need to reevaluate, what it is that we need to heal within ourselves, and how we want to grow from them. And so as this retrograde starts to really kind of gently ebb and flow into a more direct station with this trine to Mars in Cancer, we're being asked to lean into that intuitive action, and to also reclaim the energy that we might have given away in these lessons in these relationships or in these financial situations, to really reclaim our power, Mars in Cancer, and to yield it close and to not underestimate it or take it for granted. And this is really interesting considering that Monday, the 7th, Venus is going to have one of those divine appointments I mentioned. She's going to conjoin Saturn in Pisces, which is so sobering. It's a transit that says, was the fantasy real? You've dived to the depths of the ocean. You have gone down to the darkest point, Inanna myth reference, and you're coming back up. The things that you saw down there, what was real? What can you use? What can we take from that to build a solid foundation moving forward? And what wasn't real? What was a delusion rather than discernment? What was disappointment instead of divine alignment? And Venus conjoined Saturn asks that we create a container for us to place all of these more etheric, intangible things. What is that container? Is it perhaps a new relationship? A new relationship with yourself, a new practice, maybe taking up journaling, taking up writing. What can you integrate into your life that can serve as a foundation for you to say, I took these lessons and I channeled them into a space that felt concrete enough to help me stand on and to carry me forward. This transit might bring to a close anything that wasn't working. Karmic endings will probably be a theme here. The North Node is in Pisces, so it may also be the beginning of something new, the beginning of a new relationship, maybe a new financial venture, or the beginning of you moving through the world in a way that is consistent with your new values and your new commitment to yourself, and to what you know that you deserve. And that is super Saturnian, if you ask me. And Saturn wants you to know your worth. Saturn wants you to work to really understand what foundation is necessary for you to stand on that, to stand on business, if you will. And so, again, super interesting to come off of that Mars in Cancer trine into this Saturn conjunction. Something here is really asking us to solidify, again, those next couple of steps, to solidify in our new perception of this specific situation and this retrograde story as a whole. And do you know what? Mercury stations direct on the same day as well. So Mercury in Pisces retrograde is, just the worst condition Mercury can be in. It's one of the worst conditions Mercury can be in. But that isn't to say that Mercury doesn't bring fruit to the table. Mercury in Pisces could be psychic communication, telepathy, dream magic, working with our intuition. And whilst retrograde, perhaps all of these realms or mediums of communication were yelling at us or signaling to us, this is what the issue is, or this is what the problem is, in a way that we weren't hearing it or seeing it or able to maybe interact directly with it on a conscious intellectual level. And now with this direct station, we can do that a bit better. The messaging is probably still going to be heavily coming through these psychic channels. However, we have a better grasp on the way that it's showing up. Maybe we are more capable of discerning what is a sign or a psychic or intuitive download versus maybe being a little bit delusional, looking at license plates and saying like 111 right when I was thinking about da-da-da-da-da. Is that a sign? Is that how your guides like to talk to you? Or is that just like the third license plate that has 111 in it and you were actually not even grounded or paying attention to what was on your mind? Everything can be a message, but ultimately the way that we can best work with the unseen realms is fine-tuning how it is that we like to receive that messaging. And maybe that's a part of this direct station, us learning, okay, how do I prefer for the heavenly realms or the unseen realms to send me confirmations or synchronicities? You can quite literally tell your guides, whether that's angels or higher beings or however it is that you want to relate to that language. You can literally specify, I like to receive messages via songs. If if I'm like walking past someone and I hear a song lyric. Or you can say, hey, license plates are fine. I spend hours in traffic. I kind of need that. Whatever it is, you know, you can be a little bit more intentional about how you have that in your life so that the next time something happens, you have that recollection of, I set the intention that I would pay attention to when something shows up in this way. Therefore, I know that this isn't me being delusional. I know that this is some level of like internal guidance. And I'm not saying, you know, make all of your big, grand life decisions in this way. There is a balance here. But when we're talking about Mercury and Pisces, this is the dance. This is the flow. Allow for that wisdom to pool in that way. You know, the majority of humans live in a society that is extremely logical, rooted in science and facts. And so any opportunity that we can get to lean into those more unseen psychic realms, should you feel so inclined, it almost makes us see Mercury in Pisces in a gratitude perspective of like, thank you for leaning into these realms for the time being. It helps us to experiment with other forms of knowing, other levels of communication with realms that are not so at the forefront in our day-to-day lives. I think that that's actually one of those blessings in disguise, especially if you happen to struggle a lot with Mercury and Pisces. Not a time still for signing super important contracts or anything like that if you can avoid it, but there is so much more clarity now moving forward as Mercury makes its way back through its shadow and will eventually re-ingress into fiery and bold, decisive Aries. Monday just has a lot going on because then we're going to have Venus in Pisces make a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. This is a little bit of a love quake. It's a little bit of a shakeup. Anything that maybe that conjunction with Saturn might have missed as far as like, okay, let's see it this way. Saturn sat Venus down and was like, let's look at the foundation of what you've got going on. Maybe Saturn strengthened certain parts, but there were little tidbits that still needed to get shaken up. Uranus is doing the final shaking up of it all. It's so thorough. It makes me really curious about what is it that's showing up for you right now that is just crossing the T's, dotting the I's in your relationship life, in your financial life, in your relationship to aesthetics and beauty and self-worth and love and being seen and your magnetism. This is like Venus getting a boost. So many boosts because these are trines and sextiles. They're really supporting us in these areas of our life. And so with the sextile to Uranus and Taurus, we may be receiving a lot of liberation as well in terms of anything we've had attachments to, this sort of emotional liberation, just kind of sweeping through to help us move forward with strengthened values where we're no longer in a codependent mindset or even on a distorted mindset, and we can see, actually, I want to revolutionize my values entirely. I want to now move in this way. There's a bit of a mad scientist kind of approach here. That's how I see Uranus, at least. And so Uranus is saying in Taurus, what makes you feel stable? What makes your values feel strong, and how can they help you enter into a moment in your life where you are approaching these Venusian themes from a just game changer perspective, where you feel like, okay, this is a little bit of an experimentation process, but it feels solid, and it didn't just show up out of nowhere. It's actually a collection of all of the experiences that I've ever been through and extracting all of the wisdom from it to move forward strongly and to then inform your new capacity of expansion in how you show up in those fields. Also a good opportunity for life to surprise you in these realms. So however it is that shows up, it sounds really lovely and really exciting. On Thursday the 10th, direct stationed Mercury in Pisces conjoins the North Node. So we are experiencing continued messages from our destiny path, from the divine. If you don't like that kind of language, if the language in which I speak in general doesn't resonate, you're always welcome to click away. But if you want an alternative language here to work with, what path are you on, just to put it really frankly? What projects and relationships and information are you absorbing in your day-to-day life in this moment of your life? Is it working? Is it not working? This conjunction will let you know. This is a moment where we'll kind of receive more insights into where we're at. And Mercury conjoining the North Node might be a huge influx of that messaging, of that information. Something might just come through so clearly where we're like, oh, that changes actually everything. That changes the path entirely. Aspects to the nodes have that kind of capacity to course correct, to shift the path very quickly, or to reinforce it. So if you have been curious or confused about maybe whatever it is that came up during that Mercury retrograde, with its conjunction to the North Node, which is the third and final pass, something that Mercury had been going back and forth with here is confirmed or solidified in your path moving forward. So it's a sort of cosmic realignment for you in terms of how you were seeing things, maybe in terms of how you were speaking about a certain story, or in the way in which your plans moving forward were set. Are they still that towards your dreams? Are they changing a little bit? And it's all enveloped with this dreamy energy because, hello, we're in Pisces, and so it's going to be very much that. But it could also be perhaps a little bit of a spiritual, religious sort of connotation, and very, very watery, very fluid. Pisces always wants to merge and be one. So if it has an underlying theme of that, then that will also kind of be tied into whatever messaging or communication might come through for you at this time. Friday the 11th, we have Mars in Cancer making a trine to the North Node in Pisces. And because Mercury just made this aspect, it's all kind of intertwined. So we got the messaging, we got the insight, we got the green light, the go-ahead, the intuitive hit onto what the future might hold or what it's starting to look like. With this trine from Mars in Cancer, we are being shown what the next steps are. We are being asked to say, take that and go forward. Not in a rushing way, not in a I gotta do it now kind of way, but in a ebb and flow. Like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let me take that from the ethers and incorporate it into my plan. Oh, I can actually do something about that right now. Let me go and do that. It's super fluid, and that feels like the best kind of medicine if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, if you've been feeling uncertain about what to do next, or if you're even doing the right thing, if you've been having some sort of conflict within yourself. These transits are saying, don't think too much about it. Just feel your way through. Get the dream messaging, get the intuitive nudge. Maybe you just wake up one day and you're like, I don't know why I'm getting the nudge to go to this park or to go to this place, but I just think I have to go. I dreamt it, so let's just see what's there. That's like a very literal example maybe, but this energy wants to support us and to almost flush away any of that stagnant energy and bring in these like healing, clear, etheric waters to kind of align us with this path that we're walking, with our highest path. And I like to think that we're always on our highest path, even if it feels like we've gotten out of alignment with like our purpose or what we're working towards, or a destiny, or even just, the version of ourselves that we want to be, because who we are right now is always enough. And if we're experiencing something in the present moment that is challenging and tough, then that is a part of the curriculum for us to continue forward in the way that we want to go, in the direction that we want to go in. So I don't fully believe that you can ever really get like out of alignment, but there are those days where you're like, oh, I can tell I'm like stuck in a funk. Oh, I can tell that I'm not like making the habits that I want to make. And so I think that this energy inspires us to realign in a way that is filled with compassion for ourselves and for our journey, and filled with a lot of sweetness and healing energy as well. In absolute Mercury retrograding through Pisces fashion, I glossed over entirely one of the most important aspects happening this week, which is the full moon in Libra. This full moon is ruled by Venus, who will station direct only an hour later And so it's extremely auspicious seeing as to how Venus is still in her exaltation point, albeit she's going to be in shadow for some time, but she's no longer retrograde. There's an element of moving forward with greater clarity and optimism here, as I've spoken about already. A lot of this lunation kind of is a moment to allow ourselves to recalibrate and rebalance our internal emotional landscape after everything that we've been through. With this being the first lunation since the eclipses, it really marks that point of leaving eclipse season and going into new territory. I will say that the most challenging aspect that this lunation will have is a square to Mars in Cancer. It's going to also oppose Neptune in Aries. It's going to trine Pluto in Aquario and Jupiter in Gemini. So if the worst aspect that it has is a square to Mars, I'm going to take it. I would just say, don't go overboard on the dopamine here. It's going to be a beautiful full moon, don't get me wrong. And you don't want to go overboard because you might land yourself in hot water. I would use this day to rebalance, recalibrate, maybe spend time doing an activity that helps you find your center. Because Libra is an air sign and is very social, very intelligent, very about aesthetics, maybe you can spend the day with a group of people that heighten that for you in your life. Whatever it might be, use this lunation to really mark a new beginning. Let go of anything that you might have been still carrying with you, especially after this Venus retrograde cycle. Because we're out of eclipses, we are absolutely safe to do rituals with this full moon. You never want to do rituals with the eclipses because they're just way too volatile. But this full moon feels like an elixir. As I've mentioned, we already have a really supportive, super solid week, a really nice breather before we go into maybe a couple of more huge tone shifts, especially going into May. But because this week has been so solid and stabilizing even, I think that this full moon will just kind of bring in more of that energy, and I would absolutely work with it. So now you'll hear me talk about Venus's direct station and take this all within context as well. Saturday the 12th, Venus in Pisces stations direct. This feels like taking your first breath after having dived to the deepest part of the ocean, where you saw a bunch of treasures. And maybe as the sunlight came through the water, there was a little bit of like distortion of the light, making it difficult for you to see if what you were looking at was really a treasure or maybe it was something hidden there that was different. We are coming up for a breath. We're still swimming in the water, but we're not being swayed by the current. We are swimming with the current. There's a level of sovereignty that returns into our life in these sort of Venusian realms. And this is a moment where we will receive a lot of clarity that will support us in releasing what was causing distortions, what was confusing, what wasn't helpful. We will have so much more clarity in what we deserve, and because of the earlier transits in the week, a lot of it might be connected. You may revisit some of those events or conversations that took place with that trine to Mars in Cancer, the Saturn conjunction, or even the sextile to Uranus. The direct station for Venus takes all of those moments and takes them in, soaks them up, if you will, to level up, to expand the aura, to step into an energy that is etheric and dreamy, but it's not confused and it's not delusional. It's in alignment with the divine, and it's in alignment with Venus's magic and mysticism that it naturally carries when it's in Pisces. And how this shows up for you in your life could be you maybe literally are connecting to these realms of yourself, these aspects of yourself. But it could also be a relationship that's showing you that that's even available. We can now move forward with discernment, with devotion, as opposed to delusions and disappointments. There could still very well be disappointments that show up as we let go of the fantasy, but because we are moving forward and we're going to have those passes again to Saturn and Uranus and Mars, it's going to continue to support us and boost us and say, there's no going back to that. The current is taking you this way. You couldn't swim back there even if you wanted to. The ocean has that powerful but gentle force to it that when it when the waves are taking you one way, you can't go the other way. Even if you're an amazing swimmer, after a certain point, you realize, I am resisting the flow. Do I really want to do that if it's taking this much effort to resist it? After a certain point, you kind of just have to go with it. So there's this mystical vulnerability that comes through, and we almost get like a heart renewal. This feels like we are getting like an upgrade to our heart and our energetic heart. And as we continue, so that Venus is out of shadow, we can see and feel things from this new place. Now, it's interesting because, Venus is in this very empowering place, and she's going to re-enter Aries, where she's in her fall, and that isn't to say that everything goes bad for Venus here. Venus is just more risky, more bold, a lot louder, a lot more unconventional. So maybe all of these events that are happening in Pisces are building her up to do that in a way that is unapologetic, is very bold, and can walk through the fire knowing that her mystical, etheric self has the capacity to make it into like a steamy, sensual, beautiful situation. So in whatever area of your life that this is taking place in, just expect that there is more momentum and greater clarity in how you move forward. And you're receiving a lot of structural support, shakeups where they are needed to further strengthen the foundation of how you move, and a lot of actions kicking into place to help you kind of take that storyline further. We made it. We survived the retrogrades, and so now as we go through the Mercury Venus shadow of it all, we can further sit back and say, wow, I wasn't sure how that made sense at first, but now it all makes sense. Or wow, that's so interesting that this is the role that this person was playing. And because it's all very Pisces Cancer, we can forgive the characters that showed up to play certain roles in these storylines without bitterness, without resentment, to whatever feels available to you. If you're like, actually I want to be petty and I don't want to forgive this person, do that 100%. That's a part of your story and your greater curriculum. However, I think that these energies do allow for that inclination to be like, actually, no hard feelings. I want to move on from this really gracefully, and it feels so much more refreshing to my soul to do it in this way, as opposed to sending you psychic daggers. So wherever it is that you're at, just do it with that consciousness of like, I am aware that this is how I'm navigating this. I am aware that this is where I'm at, and sit with that. And is that where you want to stay? And is that how you want to keep playing it? And if it's like, yeah, I'm cool with it, then okay, great. That's your lesson that's unfolding, or that's the path that you're in. But congrats if you made it. Amazing kind of week. I really love this week, and I think that a lot of beautiful creations can be born of this. If you're a poet, if you're a painter, if you're into film, if you're into just hanging back and just chilling, you can just enjoy nature or do something that feels like it connects you to that magic that you had when you were a child, or just your creative capacities and your optimism and your sensual, pleasurable aspects of life. So I'm going to draw a card now for this week, just to gift us any messages that we need to navigate it. Just because a lot of these transits have been quite supportive doesn't mean that they'll always be a walk in the park, and I fully acknowledge that. And so any messages that just sort of can help us and support us through all of this forward momentum after months of reviewing and reassessing. And I have to grab it because it fell. We have the Ace of Pentacles, and the Ace of Pentacles is the divine giving you a new system of values, a new way in which you approach values. Could maybe also be giving you some sort of financial support. Maybe you, because Venus rules finances, maybe you get an unexpected aid, something gifted to you, something that is encouraging you to pursue your dreams. Someone is investing into you in some kind of way, or maybe you're investing into something or yourself or someone. So Pentacles are our material sort of aspects of our life, what we value, what we own, what we can touch and feel. Maybe someone just presents something to you, an offer that has the possibility for something really tangible and long-term and long-standing. And because it's the Ace of Pentacles, it feels like it's maybe coming out of nowhere almost, like it's a surprise. Again, we had that Uranus sextile. And so I'm wondering, is someone gonna give you something? Are you gonna get yourself something? You know, I really love how in this card there is a garden. And so this just feels super Venusian in nature, very Taurus as well. And so Venus is going to re-enter into Aries, but she's then going to go into Taurus. And so I wonder if this is a little bit of like a foreshadowing as well for like Taurus season, where maybe there's something there waiting for us, a gift, a treasure, a reward maybe for what we've been through and what we've learned and what we've integrated. And this is almost the universe saying, you know what, like here's this gift. And the way that this gift shows up 100% will vary on what you value and what you've been experiencing. So if you've been going through a financial hardship where you've just been needing more money, this could be a sudden sort of support for that. If you have been in a relationship that has been challenging or confusing and maybe you had to let it go, this could be something new coming in or a new set of values for you to integrate. Or if you've been in a relationship and you're like, actually, we passed the challenges, we're going to keep going forward. This feels like maybe you're unlocking a new level of valuing each other and even how you access your own abundance within that. This can also have to do a lot with the land. How do you source love and validation from the land and from the earth as opposed to social media or people or, you know, these other things, taking away the importance from the material so much and asking yourself, how do I actually source my self-esteem from my connection with maybe like the devas and the earth spirits? You can take it there if you want to. So this card can really just keep going. And so it just feels like it's giving a lot. It's giving a lot now. What a super sweet reading and an amazing card to kind of tie it all in together. I feel like this week is, again, just going to give us a lot of support and a lot of help in how we move into the rest of April and going into May. So really soak it up, really sit with it. Don't take it for granted. Oh my God, please make the most out of it. The universe is giving us cherries and lemons and stuff. Are we gonna make a cherry lemon pie or are we just gonna look at them and, you know, let them kind of sit there? You know, do something with this energy, let it move through you. And as always, I'm super excited to see how this shows up. Let me know below how it's showing up for you. And I'm wishing you all of the catharsis, all of the epiphanies, all of the healing, all of the creativity. And I'm wishing you so much magic. Thank you for spending time with me. And I will see you next week. Hasta luego.